Dream Supply, giving you the tools and knowledge to make your dreams your reality.
All right, well, we are headed to Westminster Private School to do a speaking engagement workshop type thing, which is really exciting. That curriculum in schools these days are starting to acknowledge film even more. Obviously, there was definitely nothing like that in school when I was younger, but I think it's really, really awesome that, you know, schools are starting to support the filmmakers and really treat it as a career option for students. So anytime I have the opportunity to kind of put or add some gasoline to that fire, I'm going to do it. It's super important, and I think we have to, especially here in Atlanta, where there is a ton of filming going on and it continues to grow. On the indie side of things, we have to be an advocate of the future of filmmaking. And one of the ways I feel strongly about doing that is being heavily involved, not just in my productions or my own business, but also trying to help cultivate the younger generation of filmmakers and help them find their way and their path. Because if we don't, then it kind of, you know, you can't complain about it when it turns into something you don't like or you're not happy with. So for me, anytime I get the opportunity to share my perspective or help teach or give knowledge or opinion, I'm going to do that because, you know, the filmmaking community is one of the greatest communities in life because it does embrace so many different walks of life. And at the end of the day, we're all there for one thing, and that's to contribute to telling a story. And hopefully that story resonates with people or provokes emotion within people. So, you know, I think those things are super, super important. And, you know, it's really an honor when people ask me to come and do these types of events, just because, you know, at the end of the day, when I started my journey as a filmmaker, I never really thought I would be where I am, and on the cusp of opening my own studio and things like that. So it's really, it's very surreal that something that I just love and was incredibly passionate about and wanted to learn how to do it and wanted to learn how to become good at it is now unfolded into something that other people gravitate to, and I've done well enough to where they respect my opinion as a professional to bring me into a venue and speak to anybody about it. And that part, I still can't wrap my head around it. It's crazy because, you know, it's kind of like I just had my head down doing what I felt passionate about, what I love doing. And, you know, I always tell people, you do great work, you have a great work ethic, and everything else kind of just falls in line behind that mentality. It's not like you know, that's the grind that people need to focus on. It's not necessarily about the grind of trying to make money, because I always feel like the money will come if you do great work, if you have a great work ethic, and you're a good human being. Those things will fall in line, because there's something about putting that positive energy into the world that just has people gravitate towards you. I wish I could say I did something incredibly clever, special, and unique to be getting or providing these opportunities like this, but honestly, it's nothing. There wasn't an additional effort made. I was just being me, doing what I love to do, and I think there's such a rare honesty in that, and that's what makes it such a difference for people, versus, if someone is just there being about the bottom line. Like, you in life, the bottom line, meaning money, is not ever in your life going to give you the sense of satisfaction or even just it's like a temporary thing. Like, yes, it's great when you get a paycheck and you're not worrying about how your bills are going to be paid. So don't get what I'm saying mixed up or confused. Money's just a necessary evil of the world that it's required just to live life. But what I'm saying is, it should not ever be the whole focus and goal of what you're doing. You need to have a bigger aspiration outside of just a financial piece, because it's not fulfilling. It's not. Like, I went through the superficial stage in my life, and that there's no fulfillment in just acquiring money. It's definitely 1,000% has to do with the work that you're doing and something that you're obsessed with. So for me, being a creative, it's something that was a passion, and it's something I would do for free, and was doing for free as a passion prior to it becoming my job or career or how I earn a living. So, and I'll tell you, I'll be the first one to tell you, if I can do it, anybody that really wants it can do it. And I know that's so cliche, and people say that all the time. But the question is, if you're trying to do what you love and it's not happening, or it's, maybe you need to refocus. Maybe it's not truly the thing that you're passionate about or the thing that you love to do. Those things are all variables. Sometimes you think one thing and it's not what you thought. You know what I mean? So it's like you've got to keep pushing forward. Somebody asked me one time, they said, well, how long are you going to try to make it before you give up? And I was like, well, there is no giving up. It's not about making it. For me, making it is being able to get on set, shoot something, edit, write a story, shoot it, and then edit it. And for me, that is making it. There is no other, everything else on top of that is just like the cherry on top. It's like the extra thing that goes with it. But it's not what it's about for me. It's about just doing what I love, and hopefully, having a story that people enjoy and relate to, or teaches them something. It has nothing to do with, are you trying to get a big studio budget, or are you trying to do this, or are you trying to do, those things would be cool. Would I turn them down? Probably not. No, that would be crazy. But at the same time, it's not the thing that is driving what I'm trying to achieve. Because ultimately, let's face it, becoming a big Hollywood director, producer, anything that's in that upper echelon of the playing field, it is pretty much equivalent in ratio to becoming a professional sports athlete. So it's like, I don't want to create an aspiration of something that is, I'm constantly working something and I'm beating myself up because I'm not achieving it, because the window of that opportunity or actually happening is so very, very small, and there's so many different things that go into whether or not that happens. So for me, it's really comes down to doing what I love to do and being able to pay the bills doing it. Like, that is my zen happy spot. I have a roof over my head, food in my kitchen, clothes on my kids' back, everyone's taken care of, there's nothing missing, there's nothing lacking, and that's it. Like, that's, as long as I get to go and do what I love, like, the money is not the bottom, it is not the ultimate goal, and neither is, again, trying to make it in Hollywood or whatever. At the end of the day, as a creative, as most creatives, we just want to tell our stories. We don't want someone like a studio coming in, taking the creative control over, saying what the final cut is. That's not the direction that I want to go. I want to tell the stories I want to tell them. And the way I've structured my production company and built my business was I would get a small job and I would save that money. I get another job, another small job, you get $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. It keeps adding up and adding up and adding up. And over time, over the past 10 years, I've literally acquired all the gear and all the things I could possibly need to be a self-sustained production company. I don't need all I have to do is do casting and crew up, and that's it. Everything else I have covered. So, but it took, over 10 years to get to that point. Your journey, you got to have patience in your journey. Like, there is no such thing as it being instant gratification in this industry. And the thing is like, goes back to the point of having this opportunity to go to a high school and speak about filmmaking and the process and everything that goes into it. I mean, there's, even in the past 5 to 10 years, there's been such a huge shift in the way we're watching TV, or how it's, not necessarily how we're watching it, but how it's being delivered to us. When I was growing up, it was whatever came in on the cable box, and you wanted to see a movie, you had to go to the movies. But now, technology is taking us to a place that's almost like the Wild West. It's really, and not only that, but technology is becoming more affordable to where, back in the day, you had to shoot film, and that was expensive, and indie people struggled, and they couldn't do that. But now you can get an incredible look, cinematic look for under $5,000. That's insane. If you really were on a tight budget, you could have an incredible look for under $2,500, honestly. Because guess what? At the end of the day, and this is going to be one of my very big pieces of my lesson or discussion today at Westminster, is that your camera doesn't matter. Your gear doesn't matter. None of that matters. Those are extras. They don't matter. Why don't they matter? Because if you can't tell a good story, or you don't have a good story to tell, it doesn't matter how beautiful it looks and how cinematic it is and has all this just incredibly polished look. None of that stuff matters if you don't have a good story. Now, you do need to learn it. Say you have a $500 DSLR camera. Now, you just have to learn its limits and what it can do, and focus on getting the best image out of it. You're not going to have a bad image, but people need to spend more time figuring out how to tell better stories, whether that's through the writing process, or through the cinematic language of why shots are composed the way they are, why the camera moves the way it does, how the production designer is setting or designing a set, to the color palettes being chose. All those things relate to making your audience feel and understand different things about your character and story. Nope. From what I've seen, people just they're not spending a lot of time on that. There's a lot of beautiful, amazing looking work that's being put out there because of the technical and technology advances, but the stories aren't there. And that's something that I think needs to be paid attention to, honestly. But, that's another case, another day, another story. Again, super excited about being able to talk to some high school students about the future of their future in film. And, I think the biggest misconception a lot of people have about film or the movie TV industry, big or small, indie, whatever, is that, you got to be a director or a writer to be part of that community, or you got to be a camera operator or something that's a very creative or technical field. But the thing is like, it's a whole ecosystem on its own, which, the film industry has agents and people that are on more the business side. There's accounting, there's attorneys, there craft services, people that are really, like, hey, may have a passion to be a cook or a chef. Like, there's room for every and anything and anybody in the film industry, which, I think that's pretty, you can't say that for all businesses or all industries. Some are going to just cap out, and they're going to be limited on the types of career opportunities. And the thing is like with filmmaking, or we'll just say video production as a whole, it's not, that business and that industry is not getting smaller by any means, and it will not get smaller, because at the end of the day, every single business and company in the entire world is dependent on creatives, and it's going to continue to be that way. It's a dynamic of, to be honest, people, the production companies can't produce the content fast enough the way we're consuming it, because now we're binge watching. We're watching a whole season or a whole 2 seasons in a weekend, and then it's like, oh, how many times are you on social media and you see, I need some suggestions on what to watch. I've already watched blah, 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 a whole bullet list, and it's just like we are consuming it so fast that the industry is struggling to keep up. So and that's just going to continue to grow and continue to grow, and there's going to be new platforms where content's being delivered. It's letting us have our niche little communities, like for people that are really into, say, this type of thing, and there can be a whole world of content that's created around that, and I think that's really awesome. It's exciting to know that in a world where job security goes up and down, that fluctuates. Sometimes you have good and bad times, but at the end of the day, I would say in the past 10 years, there's never been like a dip. Since the technology started coming out, there has not been a dip in the growth of that. It's just going to be up to us as the creators to find creative ways to turn it into business. And at the end of the day, it's going to come down to who the best storyteller is, because next 5 or 10 years, I'm going to go out on the limb and say it's going to be a pretty even playing field when it comes to gear and achieving cinematic looks. I mean, I think it's there now, and it's just going to continue to level out. And at the end of the day, it's really going to come down to, who tells the better story? Who's and I got my fingers crossed that we eventually get back into seeing more and more original content, where we're not seeing things rebooted and remade, or part two to a movie the initial one came out in the 80s, and now it's like Hollywood as a whole, in my opinion, is, and when I say Hollywood, I mean your studios and theatrical release companies. They are not, it's the same thing like with the theaters not wanting to play ball with the new titans in the industry, and they want people to conform back to the old way of things. But the thing is the old way of nothing stays the same. It changes. So what, like for Martin Scorsese's new film, The Irishman, and there's the whole battle with the theater. He wanted to get the theatrical release so it could qualify for the Oscars and that, and that's a whole nother thing. But the thing is that for the theaters to demand a 90-day run versus a 30-day run is crazy, because at the end of the day, think about it, it's a whole lot easier for Netflix to go and open up a very small chain of theaters to release films in so they can meet the requirements that are needed than it is for, say, AMC or Regal to have to go out and deliver or start creating content. Like, I think that's really where a big issue with egos have come into play. And, you gotta, I don't care at what level somebody is at, or, a business, like, if you don't embrace change will put you out of business, because it's inevitable, it happens, and nothing remains the same. To me, it would be a better idea for AMC or another, these places to become a partner with Netflix and not the enemy, because we already know what did Netflix do to Blockbuster. Have you been to one lately? Have you rented something? No. So that's an interesting way to look at it, and the ego of big studio business, because they've dominated that world for decades, and everything right now is so new that they're still very confident that they have a grasp on things, but ultimately they don't. It's slowly losing. So interesting stuff. So stay tuned, and I'll keep you guys posted. This is going to be a new thing for me, where I'm going to just try and vlog through the day of what I have going on, and just a real intimate, behind-the-scenes look at all the things that take place in production and media. And it's not all going to be pretty. Some of it's boring, some of it's tedious, and some of it is painful, because things don't always go or turn out the way you expect them to. And those are the things that we don't share or publicize a lot. But I think it'll be a good thing to kind of put that out into the universe and the world, to see the struggle of things and how that plays a part in what we're ultimately trying to accomplish. Because nothing just happens for everybody, even though it may seem like some have a stronger advantage than others. It's still a challenge. It's never easy, and it's an ongoing uphill fight, and I'm excited to share that with you guys. So all right, let me fight this traffic in Atlanta. It's pretty serious, you know what I'm saying? Ciao.
Dream, imagine, create. Follow Michael on Instagram at directedbym3.